Real quick, how does electricity actually flow through your vehicle? Some people think it's magic. You flip a switch and boom, there's lights. But that's not actually how it works. You see, electricity flows through your vehicle like water in a river. So you have a reservoir, then you have your river, then you have the cities that the river feeds. In this case, your reservoir would be your battery, and the river would be the wiring harness. The cities would be all of your modules and your sensors and your lights that need to be powered. Same, same like in a river, you have a dam, um, some type of a blockage or a break in the canal, that you're not going to have any flow. Same goes with wiring. That's why whenever it comes to diagnosing your vehicle properly, you need to have someone that knows and understands wiring properly. So let's get into that. You always want to start at the source voltage, aka your battery. 12.6 volts is about what a good charged battery should be reading. That's your source voltage. If the source is bad, nothing along that line is going to work properly. If you have a battery that's reading 12.6 volts and you have a sensor that's supposed to be reading 12.6 volts, but it's not, it's reading 9 volts, well, we have a problem somewhere. And we should probably check at the source first. Now, if we're having a good source and this is 9 volts, then somewhere along the river, we have an issue and we have to properly test that. The way we do it here at Limitless, there's many different tests. There are voltage tests, there's voltage drop tests, there's continuity tests. There's many different tests that we do and that our technicians are properly trained and efficient on testing. I'm going to show you what I like to teach young technicians that don't know much about electrical. And I'm going to show you with this multimeter. So I have this multimeter right here. It's a basic multimeter from the Cornwall tool truck. I've had this for years, bought it for $100, and it's helped me diagnose a lot of problems. I'm gonna post a video of what I'm doing right here. I'm actually gonna do it right here. Give me 2 seconds. All right, so with the multimeter, you always want to test for source voltage, power and ground. That's the positive lead and the negative lead. These two. You get 12.6 volts. You test down at the sensor, you got 9 volts. We have a problem somewhere. We probably need to test continuity to see if there's a beaver dam being built down in the middle of the river. So a simple way that I like to teach young technicians is to test the ohms, to do a continuity test. I'm going to show you what I'm doing right here on this computer. And so basically you would take the positive lead and the negative lead, and we would touch them together. Okay, this is telling me that the circuit is completely circle. It's a complete circuit. We have 0.2, 0.1 ohms. This means that there's 0.0. We have absolutely zero resistance in this circuit. There's nothing stopping the electricity from flowing in this circle right here. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a resistor in the middle. And the easiest resistor, I don't have any resistors here except for one thing, which is our body. Our bodies naturally have a resistor inside of them. We are a resistor. I'm going to complete the circuit by holding both ends of these leads. When I do that, my body has 4.2 mega ohms. So that means that there is, and mega means million. So 3.7, so I'm fluctuating between 3 and 4 mega ohms. All right, so that's 4 million ohms of resistance. That's a lot of resistance. Your typical sensor has, and I'm gonna draw as I speak. I'm gonna pull an Aaron Stokes. Let's just pretend it's a box. All right, so your typical sensor, this is the very basic drawing. All right, don't murder me in the comments, guys. This is for all the new techs that don't know anything about electrical. This is your basic sensor right here. You want to take your positive and your negative leads and touch each side and hold it there. As soon as you do that, these sensors, a typical sensor is gonna read anywhere between 0.4 ohms roughly, and depending on the type of sensor, if it's just depending on the type of sensor, it's gonna go up to around 10 ohms. That you can look up in Mitchell 1. That will give you the proper specifications of those sensors. But the most basic sensor is going to have almost no resistance. Meaning when you touch those two leads to those two pins, you're going to get almost no resistance. It needs to read as little as possible. Going back to this, if you get something that says 4 mega ohms or 4 million ohms within that harness or that river, from the reservoir to the sensor, something along those lines is bad, and you need to start, reading the diagram and seeing what is between here and here. If there's another sensor, you need to unplug that sensor and test from there to the sensor that you have, that you're originally testing from. That is the basics. Like, I'm talking the basics of ohms. All right. So again, we have a complete circuit. We have 4 million ohms with me as a resistor. Then we have 0.2 ohms with the perfect flow of electricity going between the circuit. Now, what happens when a beaver comes and builds this dam in between this river, and they completely block the flow of water going down this river? All right, or someone is doing some type of construction and they just dig and completely disrupt the flow of water, right? In the automotive world, that would be called a hot spot. There would be something like corrosion inside of the wire. I'm going to use this wire as an example. You would have corrosion somewhere in here. You would have a pinch in here. Even a cut in the wire. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the multimeter. So we have a perfect flow of electricity, 0.2 ohms. Now we have a hot spot. I'm the hot spot. We got 2 million ohms, right? You gotta follow the circuit, and you gotta find the hot spot and repair the hot spot. In this case, you would have to cut where my hands are on both sides, and then properly repair between these two wires, right, to get that perfect flow of resistance. Or we got this perfect flow of resistance, and someone goes and does some type of a repair, and they accidentally cut the wire, or the wire is just so pinched, so corroded that the ohms are so high they are out of range for the multimeter to read. What will happen then is now you get OL. OL means that the resistance is so high that the multimeter cannot read how bad the resistance is. Or open line. What I like to tell these young technicians is as simple as this. We have a full circuit right here. Somebody cuts the wire, boom, OL, we got open line. And of course my hand is part of the wire, and here's the other wire. Simple as that. Go ahead and butcher me in the comments, but it works. The next thing is, I just went into ohms and resistance. That was a lot in itself. There's also load testing, where you touch you can back probe whatever sensor, or even the battery, or even the starter or just whatever sensor you're trying to test. You could touch your positive and negatives to those wires on that sensor or component and actuate it. If it's a starter, simple. You can touch your positive and negative and have someone crank the vehicle. You will see that it goes from 12.6 volts and then it drops to a certain voltage. If it drops too much, there's a problem. And that problem will need to be fixed. Parasitic draw testing, that's a whole nother one. And scope diagnostics, you could use an Autel that has the scope on there that has the graphs. That's a whole nother video in itself. I'll get into that later. But the final message is that electrical issues are not random. Something interrupted that component, whether it was just a bad electrical problem, a bad electrical sensor. Let's just say this sensor right here. We run into this a lot. These two, let's just say this is positive and this is ground. These go down into the sensor, and this is where it communicates, right? If for some reason this sensor is exposed to heat, it's exposed to water, it gets exposed to just oil, all kinds of stuff, this right here could be damaged internally, where this right here is no longer intact. If this is no longer intact, from here to here, you're gonna get a high resistance, or you're gonna get an OL. OL, again, open line, bad sensor. You cannot repair that sensor. You would have to replace it. That's just step one. Step two is finding the wiring diagrams, to test those wires. In those wires, you may have 50 feet of wire that route from the source, which is the battery, down through the engine bay to a sensor, from the sensor down the engine harness all the way to the computer, from the computer all the way to the ground. It's a lot of wiring. There's, I didn't even mention the fuses, battery, fuse, computer, sensor. It could be 50, 60, 70 feet long, tied into 50 other wires inside of a loom that big. And to test those wires out, you have to follow a diagram that tells you it's wire number 34 and it's yellow with the pink stripe. That's a lot of information, and then you have to trace it and pinpoint it. That's why electrical diagnostics is so extensive. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to read a multimeter. And fortunately, here at Limitless, we all know how to read a multimeter. We all know how to use a multimeter, and we use that every single day in our electrical diagnostics. So if you never knew how electricity flows through your vehicle, now you do. If you're in the DFW, if you're in Ennis, and you need a reliable mechanic, stop by. Our address is 205 East Denton Street. Our phone number is 469-716-5578. And also, if you have a fleet of trucks, feel free to reach out or text FLEET to 469-716-5578. And I will reach out to you and set up a meet and greet to where we can sit down and discuss your needs. Until then, like this video, subscribe to our page, and stay tuned for more videos because we're going to be dropping a lot more value throughout the coming days. Thank you.